Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Jack Revell Show. Today, I am very excited to have not just a good friend, but also my absolutely incredible coach, Adam Hulme, on the show. Adam and I have known each other for almost a year now, and in that time, I have not just grown as a human because of his incredible work, but I've also grown to understand not just myself, but the world in which I operate a lot better. And one thing that Adam has given me is this word that we're going to talk about today, which is confidence. Now, Adam also has a podcast that he runs called the Two Coach Confidence Podcast, and he has his business, A Coach for Life, helps people with this particular skill, I'd like to call it, or maybe it's a feeling. Who knows? We'll talk about it today with that. So, Adam, welcome to the show.
Hi, Jack. Many thanks for returning the favor of you. You came on the Two Coach Confidence podcast, and I'm super pleased to be here with you and talking about this amazing thing that we call confidence.
Absolutely. So before we get going, do you want to just give us a bit of a roundup as to why you talk about confidence so much?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you know, a lot of the work that I do, I work with very different individuals. And one of the consistent themes that comes up, regardless of where the person is operating. So whether that's someone like yourself who has been in the modeling industry for, near on 12 years, who you would identify with being confident, whether it's somebody that's got their own business who's really successful, whether it's a professional athlete, there's a consistent theme that comes up around confidence, this word confidence. And I've just fallen in love with being able to support people really kind of go inwards and really identify what it means for those individuals, for the context and the environment in which they're working. And that has led to Kerry and I. So we co-host together, Kerry and I, another wonderful coach that we work on together with the podcast, to create the Two Coach Confidence podcast. And yeah, it's been something, the more we've explored, the more interest and the more self-indulgent it becomes, to be perfectly honest. So yeah, it's a little bit of background as to why I love the topic.
It's funny, but it's because every single person you speak to must have a different opinion on the word confidence and what it means, not just to them, but in the general consensus of things. So just so that what does confidence mean to you in the broader sense?
You just asked the question that I ask all our guests. So for me, confidence, having done this work for a while now, it's an ability to feel that regardless of the situation or the outcome, that everything's going to be okay. That for me, in a nutshell, is confidence. Now we can talk about situational confidence. We can talk about feeling, but for me personally, it's a little bit like, if we use today as an example, if it all went horribly wrong on the podcast, I know I'd be okay. Regardless of where we end up, where we go, if I fluffed my words, if I kind of just totally lost the plot, I'm like, that's okay. I'm absolutely fine. So for me, that ability, that inner confidence, is that I just know everything's going to be okay. That's it in a nutshell for me.
That's interesting, because does that come naturally to you, or is that something that you now have after the fact of being able to talk about this, not just to people on your podcast, but working with people and obviously being somebody who's now understands it a lot deeper than maybe a lot of people do normally?
Yeah, I think it's because I've done an amount of work around it, and on myself, I think is really important, Jack, to have a level of confidence that is inside, as you know, because we've worked together for nearly 12 months now. It takes time to get to know yourself. It takes time to be all right with some of the bits that you perhaps may have struggled with for a while inside. So yeah, definitely having an inner confidence takes work. It takes vulnerability, I think is key. I also think just being at peace with yourself and who you are as an individual, and that, yeah, there's going to be some people out there who may not connect with me, if you like, or the work that I do, and I'm okay with that. I am absolutely fine, Now, rewind maybe, I don't know, 10 or 15 years, I'd have been much more talking about confidence from a perspective of having to go and do a presentation in front of a number of executives in a big boardroom with glass windows. That would have petrified me. And it did at the time. And we can go and talk. We can go and talk to that if you like at some point during the conversation. But yeah, that for me has taken time. It's taken putting myself in situations that have been challenging and pushed me, and it's then reflecting on those situations and knowing that I've come out the other end absolutely fine, and I've always taken something from those situations.
So from let me, if I rephrase that, does it sounds like you are, when you're confident, you're comfortable, right? You're
Absolutely.
comfortable in a position. Okay, so therefore then, does confidence come from an external factor, i.e. being okay to be around certain people, let's say people you know, trust and like, or does it come from an internal place, like you just said, knowing that you are good enough at what you do to be able to do it in front of a boardroom of people without even knowing?
I think it's the internal piece. Yeah. For me, it's purely internal. I think you and I may have spoken about this during some of the time we've had together, but for me, I find at the moment, and again, take this or leave it if you're listening, is that I find many people are finding it really difficult to just be themselves. And there's we could open that can of worms, Jack, but it shouldn't be difficult to be yourself and just be comfortable with who you are as an individual. And there's a whole host of reasons why people don't feel comfortable to be themselves. But for me, that level, that's confidence. I'm just happy to be me and be comfortable with who I am. However, that's taken some time to come to terms with and get used to. I'm not saying it's something that I've just something that's just happened, because it hasn't. There's been an amount of work and experiences that have gone into that. So yeah, definitely, it's an internal job for me.
There's a guy called Chris Williamson who runs a very successful podcast called The Modern Wisdom, and he's just done his first ever TED Talk, and he talks about embracing your weirdness. And it's exactly what you just said there about how it comes from an internal place, but being accepting of who you are and how you do the things you do, and the little idiosyncrasies and the mannerisms you have that make you who you are should be embraced rather than pushed away. So do you think that people tend to try and suppress those out of fear of not being accepted or liked or whatever in society?
Yeah, absolutely. On the podcast, we've had some fantastic guests, but one of the things that stayed with me, I had two brothers on, the Jaron brothers, and one of them coined, I'm not sure whether he coined the phrase, so if there is anyone listening, but comparison is the thief of joy. And doing what you're doing now, I was like, whoa.
Mic drop moment.
Yeah, it was like, oh, that is by far, from a confidence perspective, can be the thing, the kryptonite that is for people's confidence, is comparison. We are constantly, as human beings, comparing ourselves, oftentimes without even knowing. It's only when you start doing work with someone like a coach or a mentor or somebody that you trust that you can actually start realizing just how much comparison you're making and the detrimental effect that's having on yourself and your confidence. And so I do think there is an external piece that comes with confidence that is about realizing, what am I actually taking in and consuming? What's going on for me? And what am I doing with all that information? How is that impacting me as an individual, as a human being, and my personality and who I am? And what do I want to do with that information once I've got it? Because it's all right becoming self-aware and understanding that, but how are you then going to use that information in order to kind of gain the level of confidence that you want, if it's in a particular area? Or is it just like for me, it's just a feeling of a constant that I'm okay in whatever situation I'm put in or I choose to be in. So yeah, I think that probably hopefully answers your question.
It's funny because confidence, when you look at it on the surface, is something that somebody seems to just have. it's not like you go to confidence school, or you go to university and get a degree in confidence. It's a feeling, right? It's an emotion. It's a sort of I believe that it's something that you can learn. But do you think there is an element of having what I like to call the foundations of confidence as a human being? So as a kid, we're born into the world completely, as almost the same, so to speak, without, take away the DNA makeup. But what separates someone from being super confident to someone that is maybe more introverted and not so confident?
Okay, so there's a couple of things in there for me. I say to our guests, we have that conversation about, are you born or are you not? Because it's a great place to open up a dialogue about confidence. We are all born fresh out the packet. We don't have any beliefs. We don't have any values. We don't have a personality. We don't have a name. Our egos haven't been created yet. So for all intents and purposes, like you've just said, Jack, we just delivered into the world with nothing, ready to be programmed. Okay, so it's really important, this, for me, because when we start talking about confidence, we've got to realize is we were literally, it's a little bit like when you open your laptop for the first time, you hit the on button, and then you're going to start adding apps to it, and you're going to start adding things to it. So that's really important to remember, that at some point in time, you didn't even know what confidence was. So if I take Ruben now, my 8-year-old son, he just oozes confidence. He doesn't know, because he doesn't really understand that what confidence is just yet. And it's just, he goes off into the world, and he is, for all intents and purposes, a very confident young man. Now, that's, I think, the second part, which is what you asked me, is I think what separates the super confident from maybe the people who aren't so confident. And again, just purely because of the work we've done, the common themes that come up are environment. And what I mean by that is the people that we are surrounded with in our formative years, and also the opportunities we get the chance to go and take advantage of. So one of the common threads is that parents are very supportive of encouraging the young little people in their lives to go and do things like, for example, if you're out in a restaurant, outside of COVID, and you can actually go and eat, encouraging their young ones to go and ask for the bill, or to go and ask for a menu, or to speak a different language when they go on holiday, even if it's just to say thank you or good morning in a different language. That's one of the overriding themes. I'm being very, very general here, but near enough every single guest that we've had on the podcast has talked about their parents being very encouraging to go and try different things, and knowing that it's okay, that if that thing isn't something that you're overly interested in, that's absolutely fine. We'll go and try something else. So definitely environment, definitely the people that you're around. I know you're a big fan of some of the same work that I am, but we're the average of the 5 people we spend the most amount of our time with. So if you're spending your time around people who may not be as confident as you would like to be, you're picking up on that energy. Whereas if you are spending some time around people like yourself, like me, you'll tend to take some of that energy, that confidence, and it will have an impact on your life. There is no doubt in my mind that the people that you spend your time with have a big influence on what you do and do not do in life.
It comes down to that sort of comfortable element again, isn't it? That when you feel, nobody wants to stick out like a sore thumb unless you are so confident that that's the personality trait that you have. But if you take a very sort of normal situation, most people like to just be in the situation. They have to be sort of merged in amongst it, and they don't like to stick out. But if you've got a bunch of people who are super confident, by not being confident, you then stick out. So it's this kind of weird paradox of, actually, as you said, the more people you hang around with that have confidence, that do confident things, whether it's speaking on stage or meeting new people or doing daring tasks, then you're going to start to adapt that type of personality as well. So that, I suppose, in a way, says that it is learnt. It is something that we can pick up. It's something it's a skill that we can harness. So if we were to ask the question around how, you mentioned before that you have done a lot of work with on yourself and creating confidence in your world. How does someone do that without necessarily needing other people? How do you become a confident person on your own?
Yeah, great question. In fact, that's a question I'm going to steal for the show, because we've been asked that. So great question. So first things first, whenever we're talking about confidence in any way, shape or form, what I'd like your listeners to really, really sit with is, what's my definition of confidence? So not mine personally, but the person who's looking to develop and grow, because it is so subjective. We need to give ourselves a target. We need to know what we're looking for, what we're aiming for. So if we haven't got that, you're just going off in the dark. So there is a real piece here about sitting with for a period of time and saying to myself, what do I really mean by the word or the term confidence? And that might take a bit of time to kind of really sit with, because it gets thrown around. I'm just not a confident person. I've never been confident. If you've got that habitual language in your life about your confidence, what I really want your listeners to think about is, what is confidence to me? Once you've got that, then it's like, well, where do I want it? So, okay, don't need it all the time. Presumably there's an area of your life that you're saying you would like more confidence. And it could be, doing presentations at work. It could be in an interview situation. It could be coming and speaking on a podcast. So identify the where. Where would you like that? And then strip it down further still. So what is it I need to actually do? How will I know is one of the best questions around confidence. How will I know when I'm as confident as I want to be? What will I be doing? What will other people be saying? So when you get into that space, what you're actually doing is deconstructing what confidence is, where you want it, and understanding how and what you'll be doing when you've got it. So what a lot of people don't do is do that work. And we can do that by ourselves. There is no doubt we can do that by ourselves. Is there an amount of effort there? Absolutely. But that how will I know that I've got the confidence that I want is a really, really beautiful question to sit with for a while, because it might actually be less than what you think it is. Because as you know, our brains go off into the future. They'll make up a story about this confidence that we're looking for, this mystical thing that's eluded us for so long in our lives. And in actual fact, when you say, actually, it might just be that I can stand up in a team meeting at work and run the team meeting. Right, okay. What's the first thing that I need to do then? Well, maybe I just need to ask my boss at work if it's all right if I lead the team meeting. And maybe I'll give myself, I'll do next quarters or I'll do next month. And from there, it could be, right, well, I'll work my way back. So what am I going to need? Right, well, I'm going to need to observe what good looks like. So I'll sit in one of the people that I know, if it's your boss or if it's a colleague, I'll sit in one of their meetings and I'll make some notes about what makes that meeting great. Right, okay, brilliant. Then it can be, I'll practice at home. In the comfort of my own bedroom, I've got my agenda. I know what good looks like. I can stand there. Nobody's listening. Nobody's watching. Okay. From there, it might be I'll share it with a loved one. I'll ask my partner to just listen to me whilst I go and get some critique. From there, it might be I'll actually go into the environment at work where the meeting is held, where nobody is, and I'll do it before everyone else gets into work. Then it could be, well, I'll ask a couple of colleagues just to sit in that I know and trust. So that's back to your Jack, the preparedness piece. We don't need to jump from having no confidence to this mega amount of confidence. It's all the little bite-sized pieces that we can put in place. And if we've done that deconstruction piece, once you've delivered that, if you've said to yourself, how will I know? Well, I've delivered a great team meeting. That's when, right, okay, well, there you go. I've got it now. I can feel confident because I've done that thing and I've worked my way through. As you know, the kind of strap line that we use on the show, which is taken purely from Rich Litvin, that you and I, love his work, is confidence as a result, not a requirement. And I think that is one of the best statements that we can use when we talk about confidence. It is a result of doing something. It's not a requirement to do something. And what oftentimes happens when people are talking about confidence is they get it the wrong way around. They feel as though they need to be confident to go and do something, when in actual fact, it's the opposite. It's a result of going and doing something. And it can grow and it can develop. Are there areas of my life I would like to be more confident? Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. So yeah, hopefully that gone on a bit there, as I usually do, but there you go. That is what it is.
I really love that. I think that that Rich Litvin quote really makes sense, because, you know, a lot of what I teach people, especially sort of in the, you know, the video marketing world, is that people don't go live on videos because they think they're going to look bad, or they don't do this, they mess up the words. But ultimately, when you drill it down, it comes down to a confidence thing. And so how can you eliminate confidence? How can you actually take confidence out of the picture completely? And it's exactly what you just said. It's the result, not the requirement. So if you think about it as this preparation piece, it's like, right, well, if you, and I ask this to everyone that kind of queries me on this, but it's like, how confident are you in brushing your teeth? Very confident, right? You've done it multiple times before. And then, but if I said to you, how confident are you in skydiving out of a plane? You suddenly start getting these feelings of emotion. You start getting butterflies and the sweaty palms. Maybe you're excited, who knows? But it's an emotional reaction to that question. Flip the question over to put prepared in instead of confident, and say, how prepared are you to brush your teeth? Yeah, of course I am. The toothbrush and the toothbrush, yeah, it's all there. Yeah. How prepared are you to jump out of a plane? Well, I'm not, because I've never done it before, or haven't practiced, or whatever it might be. So what it comes down to is this logical versus emotional response. Preparation creates a logical response, yes, no. And a confidence creates emotional response, which is a feeling, and then can take over. So based on feelings, right? If confidence is a feeling and confidence is the result, what stops people from maybe moving towards that feeling, knowing that that's the thing they want? What stops them in their tracks?
Yeah, one of the Kerry and I keep threatening to write a book on confidence, which will happen at some point. And the title we've already come up with is The Secret Source of Confidence. And, you know, what are the key ingredients, but also what are the things that get in the way? What are the things that are challenging people around their confidence? And it's no surprise, Jack, that fear is the number one thing. That's what, unfortunately, gets in the way. And that, again, when we're talking about confidence, the descriptive piece of it and understanding what it actually means for someone. And then, you know, as some of the work that you and I have done is, right, well, let's break that down. So the fear is understood. What is it you're actually scared of? Like, let's get that out into the world. Let's understand what that is. Is it rational? You know, or is it just made up? We're making up. What's the story that sits behind what you're scared of? You know, where else in your life have you dealt with something like this before? Because 9 times out of 10, somebody will immediately say, oh yeah, I've done that before over there. Ah, right, okay. But because of the way in which our clever little brains work and try to keep us safe, then those bits of information that are there aren't brought to the forefront. The fear just says, actually, I'm going to switch that logical part of your brain off, and we'll keep you safe for now. So we'll keep you away from that stuff over there, because that's what we need to do right now to be safe. So understanding what the fear is, and then moving yourself into a direction of, well, what can I do that is going to allow me to move forward? I might feel a little bit uncomfortable, but I can still move forward. But fear is undoubtedly the number one thing that gets in people's way. And it's a strong emotion. It's there. It's the reason it's a strong emotion is because it's to keep us safe. That's what it's designed to do. And if you think about children, again, there's an awful lot we can learn from children, that because they don't even know what the concept of confidence is, when they feel fear, it's genuine. Usually it's genuine fear for something. So standing up in front of a group of people and dancing or doing whatever kids do, they generally don't feel a sense of, I'm not confident to do this. It's, they're fine. They just crack on and do it. So there is an awful lot to be learned there as well. And also understanding our emotions, Jack. And that again takes inner work. sitting with that emotion, understanding that it will go over time as our emotions come and go. So yeah, fear is the number one thing that gets in people's way for sure.
The fear aspect it intrigues me massively, because I think that if you look at it from a point of view of how your mind works, and as you said before, your brain is programmed to keep you safe and put you in survival mode if you ever get stuck, and vice versa. And so if you walk into life with this sort of scarcity mindset, which essentially is the fear factor, right? It's the, oh, what if, or oh god, that can go right or wrong. That's the scarcity mindset. You're coming automatically from a place of, what if that doesn't happen? And if you were to just simply shift your mindset to, what if it does? And it becomes this abundance place where you can suddenly start thinking, all right, well, yeah, it might go wrong. Of course, it might go wrong. Nobody knows what's going to happen, but it might also go right. And if that does happen, what's the thing that I'm going to get as a result of that? And it could be the thing you've always wanted. And if that fear factor is holding you back, then you're never going to be able to reach your full potential, because you're just never going to get over that hurdle. It's just going to always be there. And the thing is, that is an inanimate object, really. If you're looking at it from a point of view of like a road you're traveling down, that block is just an inanimate object that can be moved, but only you can move it. So in terms of how people get over that, how people remove those fears, remove those barriers, remove those obstacles in their way, what are the things that you do personally in your life to make sure that you are overcoming them consistently, but also regularly, so that you never lose momentum on the track you're going down?
So one of the things I'm passionate about is giving yourself regular time and space. So I meditate daily. And so that for me is a big thing. That just allows me to disconnect from everything else that's going on in the world. I think that's a highly underrated thing. And yet having time and space for yourself on a regular basis is like a superpower. It brings us back into the now. It brings us back into the present. It stops us going off and telling ourselves all these stories. We, as a species, are at a really, really interesting point, I think, of we have got more information available to us and being consumed than at any other point in our species history. But it's also, we're breaking ourselves because of the pure volume that we're experiencing. And we're yet to get through a full set of generations where we don't really know the impact of that. What I do know is that there is, countless amounts of evidence and research out there with regards to, meditation, taking time and space for yourself. So that is, for me, if you're not doing that, even if it's just 5 minutes a day, I often hear, I'm too busy, I haven't got time for that. That means you should probably double the amount of time, but 5 minutes of just breathing in a nice quiet space for yourself every day, for me, works. Being prepared. So I know it's a bit simple, it's a bit boring. And oftentimes the things that can help us are a bit boring. However, we tend to move them to the side and just think everything will be all right. So preparation is something for me that if I'm looking to do a particular piece of work, if I'm going to be talking at something, if I'm just generally in life, I'm looking forward and just trying to pinpoint some of the areas that I think I may need to focus on more than others. But if I don't do that, that's when the stress comes in. That's when I'm not at my best. So definitely, preparation is one for me in terms of just, when I talk about preparation, Jack, what I sometimes mean by that as well is, how am I going to feel? Because what a lot of people do is they'll spend time preparing what they might say or what they need to do, but not necessarily how they're going to feel. And then thinking to themselves, well, how would I like to feel? So, I'm a huge, huge fan of Dr. Joe Dispenza's work. Well, actually, we can, as humans, I'm pretty sure most listeners will resonate with this, is we can take ourselves off into the future and make up the bad scenario, which is what you just said. Well, actually, what if we practiced going into the future and making up the good scenario? Because we've been for a long time as adults, we can make up bad shit at the drop of we could just make it up. Well, what if we practiced? How would it feel if I go in and ask for my pay rise and it all goes well? Or I go to that interview and I absolutely smash it out the park. How great am I going to feel? And we can practice those emotions. And I'd ask anyone to call me out on that, because we can think a thought and it have a physiological response in our body, good or bad. So when you are thinking about preparedness, I'd also encourage the listeners to think about how you want to feel when you're preparing whatever it is you're looking to do in the future. We've already discussed people you surround yourself with. That can be challenging at times, because you may have people in your life that you still love and care for, but have a different view of the world. And for me, that just means limiting my time with those people. It's not that they're bad people or anything like that. I've got some wonderful friends, but they aren't on the same wavelength as me. That's it. But I've known them for a while. They don't really understand the work that I do, and that's absolutely fine. But then I will choose to spend time with people that do understand the work that I do, and the people that I work with, like yourself. And so, there are ways to do that. Again, being creative about how to engage with people that you want to spend more time with. So things like podcasts, there's things like, there's just an abundance of way of making connections nowadays with people. There's countless groups you can join that will lift you up and support you and give you help, for just because they're nice people, they're good people. So there's plenty of things like that out there. So they'd probably be my top three, Jack. Regular meditation practice for me is super important. And that's that inner work for me. I spend time kind of reflecting on how I'm thinking, what I'm thinking about, what I'm saying to myself, preparing for whatever it is that I'm going to do. And I think that for me, over my experience, that we've not touched on, but I spent the first 20 years of my career in the nuclear industry, and preparation was just what we did. That is what it is. But it's in order to anticipate. I don't want to be going into a state of stress, because I know if I go into a state of stress, I'm not going to be thinking and being as optimal as I possibly can. I'm not going to be operating at the best possible level I can if I'm in a stressful situation. And then, as we've just discussed, just the final piece around that as well. So yeah, that's it.
Where do you take confidence for granted in your life?
Oh, that's a great question. I think now, doing things like this, maybe a number of years ago, I'd have probably been petrified to jump on and have a conversation that potentially X amount of people online, like once this goes online, that's it, it's online, it's visible. So I think now my ability to share who I am and what I do is probably, I do take for granted, but that has taken, I'm 40 next month. So, it's taken nearly 40 years. To put it into perspective, to feel that I can just have a conversation, hold a conversation, and share my thoughts openly and honestly about the way I see the world.
And so I suppose then, follow on from that, where could you see your confidence being upgraded? Where could you focus more of your energy into becoming more confident in your life, to allow you to look back on the next 5 years and be like, yeah, I rose up to the occasion like I did 5 years ago to where you are now?
I think I would like to do more. So one of the things I'd like to do is help people understand what it means to be a human being. And I've been playing around with the idea probably for a couple of years now. It's been kind of marinating around in my brain. As you know, Jack, I've spent probably nearly a decade, just over a decade, submersing myself in personal development, whether that's books, seminars, audiobooks, podcasts, create my own, being a podcast host. And I would like now to kind of consolidate that learning and just support people understand themselves a little bit better, not at like a deep psychological level, but there are things that I just think all human beings should know. So for argument's sake, the fact that we all delete, distort, and generalize information, I think is just a gift to the world when it comes to engaging with other human beings, because that one piece of information. I was talking at an event last night online, and that one piece of information that, if you're in with a group of people and you understand and can remember that part of the information is going to be deleted, some of it's going to be slightly distorted, and then some of it's going to be generalized dependent upon your background, your experience, your culture, your education, all that kind of stuff. You can empathize with other people then, because it's not that they are generally trying not to purposefully disagree with you. What you can then do is go, I want to put myself in their shoes for a minute. I want to try and understand things from their perspective, which will then help me go, right, okay, if they see the world like that, I need to think about how I can engage with them and talk to them about how I see the world. So yeah, that I would like more confidence, I think, in that space to consolidate that learning and be in a place where I am talking more regularly to groups of people and push that forward in such a way that I feel as though I'm adding genuine value to people and groups.
So based on what you just said and taking into account where you were a few years ago and to where you are now, what could you do in a way that allowed you to become that person you are wanting to become in the not too distant future, and level up your confidence to the point where you are that person in 2, 3, 4 years time?
Yeah, I can share my plan because I've got one. You'd be glad to know. So at the beginning of this year, as I do every year, my wife and I sit down. I'm the director of 3 other businesses as well. And we, as you would expect, we sit down and plan out what we're going to do for the year ahead. And then we've got a bit of a further afield plan, but we generally work in quarters, a year and then into quarters. So one of my things this year is to speak at more events. So at least one a month. This is included as one of my for May. And I'm on track to have spoken at one event a month so far. So speaking more in various different environments, in front of various different groups, and taking the opportunity to share my thoughts and my experience and my learning. So that's the first thing. I've also had the opportunity to speak every month on a personal development topic to a group of people. So I've got speaking engagements like this, where I'm a guest or I'm actually asked to go and speak at something. And then every month I am, so for those listeners who are familiar with CrossFit, I've been a CrossFitter since 2011, so pretty much not long after the inception of the sport itself. I was a CrossFit coach for 4 years, and I'm now the local box where I was a coach. I'm their personal development coach. So they approached me and said, look, we'd like to give our members something over and above the CrossFit. Would you be willing to do something? And we came up with the idea that every month I do a 90-minute Zoom call with Zoom at the minute, be face-to-face, fingers crossed shortly. And I share my learning on a particular topic each month. So last night we talked all about communication. I've done confidence, habits, time management, organization, all sorts of things, goal setting, no surprise. So that for me is building up my confidence in speaking to groups about my learning, about my thinking around the brain, humans, how we interact with the world, some of the things that people can go away and do and give a try. And yeah, that's been a critical part of doing that. And then as I move into the latter end of this year, what I'm looking to do then is actually create small events. So it might be I'll start with 2 hours, 4 hours a day. So I've then got a blueprint, a way forward to do what I've just said to you and become more confident in.
When it comes to pushing yourself outside your comfort zone and essentially building that confidence. I wanted to just kind of come back to that point you made about comparing yourself to other people, right? Because it's a bit of a paradox, and I see this all the time on particularly social media, where we are ambitious humans. You get people that are super ambitious, and on one hand, you have to see what other people are doing to understand the level in which you could reach. Because if you don't know what you don't know, then you're not able to then achieve that thing. So if you never knew someone landed on the moon, you'd never know it was possible, right? But now you know, you then have the ability to, well, it's possible. So then let's find the confidence to do so, right? So the first piece is finding those people that you can essentially model of, or you can look up to, right? So that's the first piece. Where does the line get drawn between seeing what they do and comparing yourself to what they do and never actually getting there because of the fear factor or the self-doubt or the limiting beliefs that come into it? That there must be a middle ground between there where there's that motivation, but also understanding it's not going to come instantly overnight, but not losing the momentum to actually get there in the end.
Absolutely. And this is something I'm incredibly passionate about talking about. So we're not measuring apples for apples. When we are looking outside of ourselves, we are comparing ourselves against somebody else's journey, somebody else's experience. Unless you're fortunate enough to sit with those individuals and ask them where they started. I'll use Brendan Burchard as a great example. Brilliant coach, fantastic author. And if you go and you listen to Brendan talk about where he first started off doing online videos, self-help stuff, he had a little camera propped on a box, and he was like, they were awful, like just awful. Like he had to walk over, press the button on top of the camera, then he had to walk back, get himself, the box was at an angle. What we oftentimes do is we'll look for those people. You and I work on this, Jack. It's like, right, who's doing great in your space? Right, what is it they're doing that you think you're not doing or would like to do more of? What we don't do is compare ourselves in such a way that says, well, I'm never going to be able to do that. Because every single person, regardless of their background, their experience, the funds they've had available, anything, they've all had to start from scratch at the thing they do. They've not just turned up into the world and been able to talk in front of lots of people. They've had to talk multiple times in front of people. They've had to, get out the blocks multiple times to be the fastest. They've had to climb multiple walls free solo to get to where they are. And I think as adults, what we do, we forget that there's a journey to go on. We forget that because we've perhaps been in a career for 10 or 15 years, we forget we've been in the career for 10 or 15 years, and we should then just be able to go and do these other things. No, you're back to the beginning again, I'm afraid, which means, yeah, you might have some knowledge and some skills, but if you want to do something new, everything that you've done to date has got you to where you've got to. It's not going to get you where you need to be. So I think that's crucially important, that it's okay to look at these people. It's okay to look at their attributes, their characteristics, the things that you aspire to have or want or be. But the important bit is, right, what does my journey look like? That's why you and I have been working together for nearly 12 months. What does Jack Ravel's journey look like? And we've been on a journey. And it's a super cliche word. I'm sorry for using it, but it's true. Path, road, whatever word you want to use, there is a direction of travel that we need to realize we've got to go in. And the speed at which you do that is entirely up to you. So when you're thinking about this, and if you are comparing yourselves, one of the questions you might want to ask yourself is, how long has it taken that person to get to where they are? Because I bet you're betting bottom dollar it isn't a couple of years. We've been talking, Jack, about coaching in the coaching industry, and you see these people become a 6-figure coach, become a 7-figure coach, blah, 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 right? But it's absolutely possible. Of course it is. There's plenty of coaches out there who are earning significant sums of money, but it hasn't just happened. They've got the certificate, they've turned up in the world, and a couple of months later, they're now, super coaches. No, they've had horrendous sessions. They've had things they would never say again. They've had clients they'd never work with again. They've had all sorts of experiences, and it's taken an amount of time. I think it's Elon Musk. You want to be the best at something, do the 70, 80-hour weeks. Make that choice consciously and deliberately. If you don't want to go that fast, that's absolutely fine. But then don't beat yourself up about the fact that you're not getting there as quick as some of these other people. So yeah, I think it's probably one of the most misunderstood things. And that's where, a coach, a mentor, somebody of experience can come in and kind of just give you that polite nudge that says, you've been doing this for 2 minutes. What makes you think you're going to be, an overnight success? What makes you think you're going to be at the level of success you want in a year, 2 years? Absolutely, it's not to be disrespectful or detrimental to that individual. It's just to bring an amount of realism to the situation and realistic approach.
The expression that comes to mind is measuring the gain, not the gap.
Yeah.
And when you think about that in terms of what you just mentioned about the time frame, someone becomes an overnight success in 40 years or whatever the expression is, it's funny because it's so true. I actually earlier today was looking through the messages that we send to each other, and I just listened to a voice note from about a month ago, and it was just me clarifying, I think, this show that we were doing, but also just to give you an update on what I was doing. And even what I was saying a month ago compared to what I'm doing now, I laugh at, because I'm like, oh, that was what was worrying me at that time. That was what was going on in my head. That's what I was proud of. That's what I was excited for. And now I'm, 1, 3, 5, 10 steps ahead of where I was before. And even like that little tiny voice note was just a reminder to do that classic analogy of I'm climbing the metaphorical mountain of Jack that I'm on at the moment. And that message was a little indication for me to turn around and look at the view from where I've come from. And that actually is what it makes it all about. And actually that in itself gave me the confidence to know that I'm doing the right thing. And that even though it may have been a month that's passed, I've gained not just the knowledge and the experience of what's happened in the last month, but also knowing that I can do it again. And I think it's that kind of that element of experience, and again, another quote that comes to mind is that you can borrow knowledge, but you can't borrow experience, right? You can read as many books as you want, but until you put them into practice and see how they work for you, you're never going to know how they implement or affect your life. And again, coming back to that comparison piece, how do you know that what they're doing isn't going to work for you until you try it? And yes, if you sit there thinking, oh, that's not going to work for me, they're already a millionaire, or they're already got thousands of followers on Facebook, or whatever it might be, if you sit there and worry about it, you're going to be sitting in a scarcity mindset for the rest of your life, right? Whereas if you go out and try it, you may not be the Facebook follower, but you may get 1 million followers on TikTok. Or you may not make £1 million, but you may make the difference to 1 million people. Same difference, right? And I think that's what's so powerful about just stepping outside of who you think you are and becoming who you know you can be.
Yeah, for sure. There's a couple of things in that for me, Jack, around, you in particular. When we first started working together, you'd forgotten just how much time and effort and energy and the experience of over a decade of being in the modeling industry. And it's only 10, 11 months later of working together that you're now in that place that says, actually, that's an incredible attribute. That's an incredible experience that I can share and support with the world right now. And then the other piece that you mentioned as well, about books and knowledge, for me, what I try and encourage my clients to do is think about the principle that the author is sharing and take the principle. So the Miracle Morning is a great example. So I had a client, well, I work nights. I'm like, okay, so take the principle of what the book is saying, which is do short, sharp bursts of something over a couple of minutes and fit it into your day where it fits for you. Yes, so that could be at night for you when you get up in the middle of the night to go to work. It doesn't necessarily mean it has to be in the morning. And that I think is really important. Some people will take, or they'll see something and they'll just say, well, that won't fit my lifestyle. That won't fit who I am as a person. Just grab the principle of what it's saying. You and I are big fans of Atomic Habits. Take the principles and look at how you can use the principle in your life versus reading it literally and saying, well, it should be like this, it should be like that. Take out what you want from it, give it a go, mix it up a little bit, find the bit that works, disregard the bit that doesn't. And oftentimes in confidence, it's the same. Because it's so subjective, because it means something different to so many people, that can then mean when you are comparing and looking at, you have no idea how that person's feeling inside. They could be petrified inside, but you would never know. You know, one, again, common thread across all the people that we've had on, from international DJs, yourself, Royal Marine Commando, sports psychologists. We've had just a plethora of different people from all different walks of life. And the one thing that, again, that many of them share is that at some point in time, regardless of where they are right now, and the outside world may see them as very successful, very confident, is then there were points with their life that they were just not confident. And again, that is often missed, because you look at these people, and part of the Two Coach Confidence podcast is that to share with people, look, yeah, this person might be an international DJ, you know, DJ Spooner, we had on, she's DJ'd at the Burning Man Festival, 800,000 people she's DJ'd in front of at the Burning Man Festival. Now, come on, that's incredible, 800,000 people. And if you listen to that episode, not plugging my own podcast, but she gets up every day and has to start her day with a morning ritual in order to set herself up for the day because of her lack of confidence. And yet put her in front of a set of decks, in front of, you know, in the middle of a desert, in one of the biggest festivals on the planet, not a problem. But going and interacting with the world generally, got to prepare for it, got to get ready for it. It's incredible.
It's that comfort piece again. It's that comfort piece. It's that flow piece. It's that, you know, as you know, I'm a big fan of endurance sports, you know, running, you know, swimming. I'm not a massive fan of cycling, but the thing is, it's what's interesting is that you put me in a pool for 3 hours, I'll just lap all day long. And I just feel so confident. I would never get tired. I just do it. Put me on a bike for 3 hours. And because I don't feel comfortable doing it, I don't like it. And therefore I don't feel comfortable doing it. So therefore I don't push myself further and harder and everything else. So again, it comes back to this comfortable piece. And I think that if we were to look at kind of being unique and kind of like looking at how you are so individual as a person in what you do, again, coming back to, I think what we first said at the very start of this podcast, which was, you know, you are who you are because of an absolute miracle. You know, I can't remember the figures, but something like the chance of you being on this planet are so slim. So embracing your uniqueness, embracing your weirdness is such a powerful tool. And if you're really comfortable playing chess, or, you know, riding a tandem bike, or, you know, doing algebra, right, then embrace that. Don't let the society's norms, you know, try and overtake your world, because you will then become not confident as a result. And then the best example I can give of this is the kind of the esports industry, right? Esports is something that's come to light in the last sort of 5 or 6 years in the mainstream, right? And let's be honest, esports is played by the kids at school that didn't play normal sports. They went and played video games.
Yeah.
And that was their thing. That's what they felt comfortable doing. But in society, they're seen as the nerds, the geeks, the people that didn't really, you know, fit in, which is really sad and wrong, because they absolutely did. They just didn't enjoy the mainstream rugby, cricket, football, whatever it was you were playing. Now that sporting world makes more money than the Premier League, the FIFA, like all these massive sporting bodies combined.
Yeah,
you know, and they've had an absolute amazing year because of COVID. They can play, you know, virtually and remotely and all the rest of it. But what that says is that, you know, people just need to start doing what they love, what they enjoy, what they do, and the confidence in that will make them become the person they need to be and should be later down the line. I think that's such an important part of just embracing that confidence, embracing that natural ability you have, which is then the confidence that comes as a result.
Yeah. I just as you were talking then, Jack, one of the things that I asked myself a number of months ago now, is I think after one of the recordings that we'd done, or it was after working with a client, is, you know, confidence is a concept. It's we've made it. So if you look at it like that, as in it's an idea, confidence is an idea, you know, and it's we can define it however we want to define it. And with a lot of the things that you and I work on, and that I work on with my clients around this piece, is remember that it's just a concept. Human beings, like time, there is no such thing as time. It's a human concept. It's a construct that we've made to make our life easier. Now, I'm not saying we've made confidence up to make our life easier, but it is an idea. What if confidence didn't even exist? What actions would you take? How would that make life different for you? And then you start going, oh yeah, if I wasn't saying to myself, I need confidence to do this, or if I'd do that if I was more confident, well, what if confidence didn't even exist? What if it wasn't in our vocabulary and wasn't a thing that we thought about and then had a response of? Because I'm there with that. We think about something, we talk about something, and then we have a behavior that sits on the back of it. We have an emotion that sits there, and then we'll act or in a certain way. Well, why don't we just unplug that and say, well, what if confidence wasn't even here? How would that make your life different? What would you do differently? What actions would you take? And that for me is that sort of secret source of confidence. You said comfort's in there, comparison. We need to be mindful of that. We need to be mindful of the fear. What's the emotion? How have I prepared? How do I want to feel? How will I know when I'm confident? If people only take one thing from this conversation, ask yourself the question, how will I know when I'm confident? And sit with that and really reflect on it. I think there might be some light bulb moments for people and on what it actually means for them.
That question is something that I haven't asked myself for a long time. And it's something I'm going to ask myself now again and again. And I think that what would be quite cool is, just like I mentioned with the voice notes, is actually recording a voice note of how I'm feeling about that particular question, and maybe a few others, maybe periodically, maybe every month, and just kind of like, so it's good to listen back to. And I think that's a really nice way to be able to not just keep a track of who you are, but I think as well, keeping journals is great. But I think doing a video or even a voice note version really speaks to who you are, because, you can get excited and animated when you get really excited. I know I definitely do. I'm certainly one of those people, but I think that you can hear that in your own voice when you sound worried or nervous or scared versus excited, happy, and enthusiastic. So that's what I'm going to take away from today's show, mate. I think I'm going to do a monthly voice note on how confident am I and what does it mean to me.
Wicked.
Like that.
One last thing for your listeners. If you want to become more confident, you have to do the work. You have to. Don't beat yourself up if you're not doing any work around this. Just tell yourself, I'm just going to be comfortable being unconfident, for want of a better term. If you want to become more confident, it's just like anything else. You have to say, I'm going to dedicate some time and effort to this. I'm going to spend some time reading books, listening to podcasts, journaling about how I feel about it, what I'm trying to improve, where I'm trying to improve. But do not tell yourself that story that you're not confident if you're not doing any work to improve. Just accept the fact that you're not going to do any work. I talk to people around goals. Look, there's always a buzz at the beginning, goals this and goals that. If that's not for you, just accept the fact and say, that's not for me. But then don't beat yourself up if you're not the fittest you could be. You're not eating particularly well. You're not meditating every day, or you're not doing the things that you say you should be doing. Consciously decide, if you want to become more confident, you have to do something about it. You cannot just expect confidence to fall from the sky into your body and be there for you. So that would be my last message, Jack, to the listeners. If you want to do something about it, it doesn't have to be massive grand action, but you have to do something in order to gain that, whether you think it's a feeling or whether you think it's a skill, what camp you're in, you have to do something in order to either improve the skill or improve the feeling. And
it's commitment plus consistency equals change.
Absolutely.
And that's what it comes down to. Adam, this has been Much better than the first one we recorded, let's put it that way. For those of you
That's
that...
not because me and Jack had a really bad conversation, by the way.
Adam was actually one of my first ever guests, and the podcast mic I used at the time was awful, and it just wasn't good for quality. So I'm glad we finally managed to get this in the diary almost 6 months later. But I just want to say thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wealth of knowledge with me and my listeners. Just from me, as you've heard already, Adam and I have worked together for almost a year now, and I would not be the person I am today, let alone probably have started this podcast, let alone have done all the things I've done today without the help of Adam. So when I ask him in a minute where people can find him, I would implore you to go and check his stuff out, because he's not only a great friend, but he's also an incredible coach and a change maker, in my opinion. He really makes something out of someone, and in whatever capacity they are. And I think if you've taken anything from this episode, that he has the confidence to make you the person you want to be in the future. So thank you, first of all. And Adam, where can people find you, and where can they contact you if they need to find a bit more about you?
That's a bit of an incredible thing to say. You've probably embarrassed me slightly there, I'm not going to lie, but thank you for the kind words. It is much appreciated. But you're an incredible client to work with, so that does help. It certainly does. You can find me on LinkedIn. Just search Adam Hulme. You can find me on mycoachforlife.com. That's my website. I'm much more of as Jack knows, if you're interested in the work that I do, I am more than happy. I just love people reaching out and making contact with me, Jack. So, I genuinely mean that. If you've got questions, if you've got anything that you kind of want to know, or just are interested in having a conversation, I am the kind of person that I don't spend massive amount of time on social media. I love talking to people like this. So yeah, there's 2 channels there, but if you want to reach out and have a conversation, please do. And also the Two Coach Confidence podcast. If you're intrigued and a bit more interested in this thing that we call confidence, it's available on all the usual platforms: Apple, Spotify, Deezer, Stitcher, all that kind of good stuff. And we've aimed to create something that really gets into the meat and the guts of confidence and help people. That's what we created it for. We wanted to open up a conversation that people could gain genuine value from, not just, you need to be more confident. Well, how can I be more confident? And that show is what it's there for. So thank you very much once again, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure to join the conversation today, and I hope the listeners have found some value.
Absolutely. And, if anyone does, go and check out the podcast, even if you just want to go and check out the episode I did with Adam and Kerry not too long ago, because you learn a lot about me that I didn't even know I knew about myself from the questions they asked. They get really deep and meaningful into it. But I'm going to link everything we've talked about in the show notes below. So if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a comment, a review, and share it with a friend. That's how this podcast gets known to more people. And Adam, from me, I look forward to speaking to you very, very soon. But big love, and thanks again for coming on.
Thanks, mate. Much appreciated.